Now, she is 76 years old. She hasn't had a child. She's been barren her whole life. Abraham, they haven't been able to conceive. He's 86 years old. God says, I'm going to give you a son. Through your son, there's going to be a great nation, and I'm going to bless the whole world through your son. And so they figure out, and this is one of the most dangerous things that we can do, because, you know, what does God say in every place? I will provide. I will provide. God is the great provider. But Sarah goes, you know what? God needs a little help with this. Obviously, he's made a promise and it's too big for him. Or we've got to solve God's problem for him. And so she says to Abraham, you know, we're not going to have a child. They picked up a slave girl named Hagar when they were down in Egypt. So you're going to see the consequences of when you don't respond in faith and you respond in fear. The consequences are always big and they stay with you. And so Sarah says, God can't do this. You know, this is just too big of a problem for God. So Abraham, why don't you sleep with my slave girl, Hagar, and then you conceive, and then that's the way God's going to fulfill the promise to us, and we'll take that son. And Abraham goes, okay, which is probably what most men would say in that situation. And so he does sleep with Hagar, and, you know, she gets pregnant. Now, just as a side note, when God makes a promise to you and he issues a challenge, there's always a Hagar solution. So in your life, God comes to you, what's your Hagar solution? You're just so sure that you've got to step in and solve your problem. You got a business problem. You got a marriage problem. You got something, and you've come up with some crazy Hagar solution. That's, I'll tell you, will only cause you grief in the long run. It'll never resolve it. It'll always be painful. It will always hurt. But we come up with them because we think God can't provide. When you start trusting Egypt to provide, you think your solutions, it's going to always cause you grief. So Hagar gets pregnant, and of course Sarah is just insanely jealous, and she's so mad she drives Hagar out of their house. And you see God's heart for young single moms that are pregnant, because she's crying by a tree, and God comes to her, and he says, I've heard your cry. In fact, your son, I want you to name your son Ishmael, which means God hears. And I'm going to bless your son, and he is going to be, you know, through him there's going to be a great nation that will come from him. And she realizes that there's a God who hears, and a God who sees, and a God who understands. So Hagar comes back into the house, and she gives birth to Ishmael, and Ishmael becomes the father. Abraham ultimately is the father of both the Jewish people and the Arab nation. Through Ishmael comes the whole Arab nation that you know today. Now just think of the consequence of that decision. Today, and for all of your known life and for past history, there's always been tension between the Arab nation and the Israel nation, which, as you're going to see, comes through Isaac. And it started right there with their Hagar solution. God doesn't remove the consequences when you respond in fear and you bring pain into your life.